In separate discussions on soma in the Vedas, we recognize a symbolic relationship between the plant god Soma and an earth goddess by the name of Prithvi, meaning in Sanskrit, the broad one, or vastness. For it was Soma that separated this goddess from Dios, the sky, just as Soma was also said to be the child of Prithvi, the earth, and Dios, the sky. I know, that makes Vedic Soma, Pavamana, both the father and the offspring of the earth and sky. That's Vedism, folks. We have no idea how prehistoric Indo-Aryans envisioned an image of Prithvi, the earth, but the post-Vedic concept of the earth goddess, Bhudevi, was conceived visually as either a lotus goddess or the earth was a landmass that took the form of a lotus mountain that was surrounded by and upheld, stabilized by Shesha, Vishnu's dragon form. In classical mythology, Shesha serves a similar role as the cosmic boar, in that the serpent helps uplift the lotus-formed earth out of Vishnu's watery abyss at the beginning of time. Hindu temples in Southeast Asia were typically constructed, therefore, in this exact mythic image. Temple grounds were often modeled after the image of the earth surrounded by watery moats and depicted as a single lotus mountain in the center of the temple grounds, or at times a configuration of not one lotus mountain, but 5 lotus mountains, the central one being the largest, and being identified as either Mount Meru or Mount Mandara. And in keeping with mythic traditions, Shesha, the dragon, can be observed surrounding the famous lotus spires on the temple grounds of Angkor Wat in central Cambodia. In this case, the extended lotus dragon's body is fashioned, in fact, as an underwater lotus stem, with each stem segment bearing the signatory paired leaf-like stipules of an underwater lotus rhizome, a lotus stem. When Vishnu dissolves material forms back into his ocean of nectar between time cycles, he reaches at this point his transcendental state of nonduality, his state of Advaita. In this state, he is undefined in gender. So, like Brahman, the principle of transcendental being, Vishnu represents the potential condition of a Purusa, a cosmic male, Purusa, and Prakriti, the cosmic female principle of materiality of the world and our physical bodies. So nature is Prakriti, Purusa is mind, and they come from the same source. This, of course, is what defines the human condition, isn't it? In this bisexual aspect, Vishnu is referred to as Laksmi Narayan, the androgyne. Lakshmi referring to his female side, and Narayan, man of the waters, his male side. But like Brahman of the Vedanta, Vishnu abandons this conditionless state by dividing himself into a male, mindful, and female material principle in order to populate the earth with their children with countless names and forms. In Nepal, Lakshmi Narayan is portrayed as the human embodiment of a primeval lotus flower. He/she takes a seat upon a lotus flower while displaying lotus flowers on the soles of his/her feet, as well as a lotus garland, lotus earrings, and a lotus-studded crown. As you see here, one of Lakshmi Narayan's bosoms is swollen, while the other is flat, the female and male faces of this god and goddess. At the base of the lotus garland, we observe a 6-cornered symbol, the Shri chakra, meaning disk of abundance. Basically, looks like a Star of David. The symbol is comprised of an upturned triangle, the symbol of maleness and of a phallus, and a downturned triangle, the symbol of the yoni, the goddess's vulva. So when the male symbol penetrates the female symbol, procreation lets loose. In classical Hindu mythology, just as Vishnu is the navel of the cosmic lotus on which Brahma appears to the world, Bu, the earth as a goddess, is likewise identified either implicitly or explicitly as the same divine flower, as we have already considered in Vishnu's boar incarnation. So the earth goddess is essentially equivalent to the female aspect of the consort of Vishnu, Shri Lakshmi, whom we have already mentioned in our discussions on Vishnu's turtle incarnation. Shri, abundance, appears during the churning of the ocean of milk as Padma, aka Lotus-lady, a fair and tender consort that is said to exhibit lotus filaments, those would be the stamens of the flower, as her ornaments, and a lotus-like face. At Deogar, she sits at the feet of Vishnu during the initiation of her Lord's lotus incarnation, awaiting her own moment to ascend into the heavens. So the feminine aspect of the divine flower manifests itself in all of Vishnu's descents to earth. Not unlike Vishnu, Padma, the lotus goddess, is said to be lotus-born, Padma Shambhava, or lotus-colored, Padma Varna, or lotus-eyed, a bearer of lotus garlands, Padmalini, and so on. She is quintessentially the manifestation of the water's resplendent flowers, much as Vedic soma. And like the Veda's plant god, Shri is brilliantly golden in aspect, Hiranyamayi, and honey-like Madhavi. Padma, Lotus-lady, also shares the general aspect of various Vedic sun gods. To quote the Sri Bhagavati Tattva Upanishad, following a translation of Alain Danielot, we hear, "Her breasts, made of soma, the sacrificial ambrosia, are white. Her waist is Indra, the king of heaven, and is therefore red. Her feet, sprung from the creator Brahma, are also red, while her calves and thighs, sprung from Varuna, the lord of waters, are blue. He who worships the transcendent divinity of fortune becomes the lord of all worlds." Padma's bounteous breasts are obviously inherited from earlier Aryan ancestors, such as Prithvi and Aditi, or also the river goddess Sarasvati, all of whom share their ambrosial udders, much like soma, their breasts, for the benefit of gods and Brahmins in prehistoric periods of the Aryans. Their breasts are filled with soma. Around 2,000 years ago, Mathuran sculptors envisioned Vishnu's female side, his consort, as a goddess of lotus groves. As you see here, her inviting smile is about as generous as her ample breasts. Positioning herself before a backdrop of full-blown lotus blossoms, she overtly offers her abundance, literally her Shri of milk, from her well-endowed bosoms, much as soma offers milky sap from its sacrificial stalks. While this statue can be specifically identified as Shri Lakshmi, the goddess can be just as easily recognized typologically, or one might say archetypically, as a descendant or incarnate form of various Mother Earth figures with bovine aspects in the Vedas, including the likes of Prithvi, Prishni, Aditi, Sarasvati, and the Dons, the Ushas, in Vedic verses. Since Vishnu is the sustainer of life, his alter egos, Brahma and Shiva, the former a creator, the latter a destroyer of the cosmos, also embody and pair off with similar female alter egos each as consorts. In classical mythology, Brahma's consort is the most famous of ancient rivering goddesses in the Vedas, whose banks were covered with soma plants, apparently. And that would be Sarasvati, the spirit of the Sarasvati River. She, whose name means river that is home to the saras, the reeds, i.e. soma stalks, is revealed here in a Jain portrayal of the goddess, some 1100 years ago. We see here a bosom buddy, you might say, of Shri Lakshmi. Like Vishnu's consort, Sarasvati is decidedly voluptuous, and she upholds a lotus and its underwater stems in one hand, and a palm leaf book of the Vedas in the other. Her lower hand carries a soma vessel with lotus petal incisions, while her beautiful face is enlightened by a radiating lotus halo. She, like her consort, Brahma, embodies the concept of fertility and procreation in the guise of a fertile sacred lotus. In the Mahabharata, Shri makes one of her repeating appearances as the wife of a celebrated god by the name of Dharma, truth, this being a human avatar of Vishnu in this part of the epic myth. But she also proclaims herself to be as none other than the goddess of the earth, Bhuti. Her initial appearance in this text takes place in a lotus grove, where she encounters Indra and a famous sage by the name of Narada. The tale goes like this. One day, when the famous seer Narada went to the banks of the Ganges to cleanse himself, he chanced upon the famous wielder of the thunderbolt, Indra. While the celebrated sage and Indra were involved in a discussion on holy matters at the break of dawn, just when the sun was rising and shedding its rays of light upon the land, a luminous object moved toward them, as if there was a second sun in the sky. The bright aura seemed to be riding upon a vehicle that could not be distinguished from either the car of the sun god Surya, nor that of the solar eagle Garuda. And this gleaming body was accompanied by a troop of dancing lotus-nymphs. Indra immediately recognized the deity as Shri, known to many as Padma, Lotus-lady, because this goddess was known to reside in the midst of lotus groves. When Shri finally arrived and descended upon her celestial vehicle, Indra joined his hands together to worship the goddess, beckoning her to identify herself and to advise him about her origins. The goddess proceeded to identify herself as Padma, the prosperity that springs from a lotus blossom when the rays of Surya touch her flowers. She also described herself as Bhuti, Mother Earth, the same goddess that decks herself with lotus flowers. And she also identified herself as the deities known as affluency, victory, success, fate, faith, and intelligence. Shri had come from the underworld of the Asuras, where the lords of the earth had ceased to offer devotions to the devas through penance, purity, compassion, soft speech, and virtue. She had abandoned their aquatic realms because the Asuras had deserted morality and devotions. Indeed, the Asuras had chosen to sleep during daylight hours, bringing affliction to their own children and behaving as adulterous, undisciplined, and unprincipled gods. Shri could no longer dwell among these brutes, and had therefore escaped their world with her 7 comely lotus nymphs. Namely, there was hope, faith, intelligence, contentment, victory, advancement, and forgiveness. Indra then mounted a splendid car with the goddess and drove it into the heavens. And he celebrated the moment by causing a shower of soma to fall upon the region of the self-born grandsire of the universe, Brahma, so as to spread his ambrosial rains in a blaze of splendor. As a result, the earth's atmosphere was filled with the chant of Vedic recitations, while prosperity and cheerfulness overcame the gods and mortals on account of the goddess's return to the heavens. In this auspicious scene, the arrival of Shri amounts to the arrival of a troop of lotus blossoms and a generous outpouring of soma. Opening to the dawn of the day, Shri and her attendants, the 7 apsarases, essentially the Vedic equivalent of Aditi and her 7 sons and rishis, the Adityas, abandoned their aquatic underworld to spread success, hope, and victory in the skies. The notion of ambrosial rains washing the earth and sky with its immortalizing essence is similar to the now familiar mythic role of Shri Lakshmi, enjoying an ablution of nectar by celestial elephants. To quote the Vishnu Purana, "Enthroned on a lotus blossom and holding a lotus in her hand, the goddess Shri is a radiant beauty and arises from waters. The Ganges and other holy rivers attend her for a cleansing, and elephants from the skies, raising their vases of gold and pure water, pour them over the goddess, the queen of the whole world." The interpretation of the urn-filled lustrations as soma vessels are overtly implied in the juxtaposition of an overbrimming urn, a purnagarbha, the womb of plenty, gushing with soma from a lotus-formed container. The mutual identity of Shri and the purnagarbha is similarly intimated by a lotus-formed soma vessel, the Kailasha, in Bhaktapur, Nepal. But here the image of a personified goddess is replaced by the symbol of the Shri Chakra, that 6-pointed insignia that symbolize the conjugation of male and female potentials of Vishnu. Shri, the embodiment of abundance, is identified as both the elixir and the inexhaustible womb of creation, a dual identity that she shares with the plant god Soma in the Rig Veda.